mic reading series, which is live and uncensored.
Woo!
Yay! After our featured guest, Courtney Moser, is finished with his reading, we will have open thank, as always. The sign-up sheet is right here on the table. And of course, I'll make an announcement again for that. If you do not wish to be taped, let Joseph or Woody know, and they will turn off the camera. We acknowledge that this event is being held on the former territory of the northwestern band of the Clipchamp Nation. Thank you very much to Star, our proprietress. Without you, we would have. Thank you very much to Joseph, who definitely earned his pay this week, and our library partners. Thank you, sir. We'd also like to thank Sugar House Review and who am I leaving out? Star, Joseph, library partner, Sugar. Oh, Iris Coffee. There we go.
Yeah. And Woody.
And Woody, as always.
And the English department.
And the English department.
And the English department. Okay.
I think that's
Our featured reader tonight is Courtney Moser, a.k.a. Petunia Papschmer. This is a banner night for the GLBT community in Logan, Utah. We are actually opposite David Sedaris. Thank you very much for making the right decision, even if you didn't know. I've been friends with Courtney for 27 years. Of course, I've known it for 28, but I'm a little bit takes a little getting used to, but there we go.
Tim,
yes.
walk your podium over there a skosh, because you've got a hat on you from the Helicon West. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, let's talk a moment about drag queens. Contrary to popular belief, drag is not so much about boys in dresses as it is about self-expression. And when you have too much self for one persona to express, you end up having to create an entirely different person.
Yeah.
For instance, Courtney is very much a Clark Kent, slightly geriatric one, but he is. And we all know his persona. As queens are wont to do, Courtney for many years has regaled everyone holding court at various events with stories of his exploits, all of which are true. One day, a friend of ours who runs the newspaper in Salt Lake said, "You need to write these down." And so we did, and Star was born. For those of us, and I think it's most of us who are writers in the room, you're about to get a master's class on persona and voice and the use of subtext and nuance and innuendo in writing, and it's going to be fabulous. So, let's get it fired. I can find it. Petunia Papschmer is the camp-drag persona of Courtney Moser. Born and raised on a potato and sheep farm in a small Mormon Idaho town, he now lives with his husband of 35 years in Salt Lake City. He has been the queen mother of the Matrons of Mayhem, which have raised nearly $500,000 for local charities.
Yay.
His community activism concerning HIV/AIDS awareness and prevention, social justice, and LGBT equality began in Logan, Utah in the 80s and continues today. He was awarded the Kristen Reese Community Service Award at Utah Pride in 2015, and upon his retirement, the mayor of Salt Lake City, Aaron Mendenhall, declared December 3, 2023 as Courtney Moser Day in Salt Lake City.
All right.
Courtney is the step-parent to one son and the grandfather to 3 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Courtney Moser.
Well, this is scary as shit. Seriously, this is intimidating as hell, because I'm just a hack. Don't know what the hell I'm doing. How many of you were here when I read here in Logan once before?
Woo! Yeah.
2, 3 people, 4. Okay, because I can't remember which stories I read at that time, so there may be some repeats.
All right.
I apologize. A little bit before I get into the stories, I was, like Tim said, I was born and raised here in Cache Valley, in the Idahoan, on a sheep farm. And I used to work at USU for 25 years in food services. So I've got deep roots here in Cache Valley. As you can, well, those in the picture probably can't see these pictures, but these are a representation of what petunia is. Big, tall, beehive hair usually, about 18 inches high, and cone-shaped breasticles, sort of like Madonna, yes, out about a foot, which are really a bitch to wear. And eating with them on is damn near impossible. You have to cut something up, take it, go around the breastbone, in and out, and back around. Or if I'm really brave, I'll just rest the plate right there on top of it. Petunia started in the 80s, in the 1980s. I write the stories with a lot of 80s and 90s references. Also, a lot of Mormon speak because I was raised LDS. So if you're unfamiliar, raise your hand, we'll try to explain something. Also, there's a lot of, these stories were written for mostly a gay male audience. So that vocabulary also. Then another thing you need to know, I refer to Queertanic a lot in all my stories. Queertanic is my car. I'm on the 7th version of Queertanic right now, but the original was a 1975 Buick Electra. Big ass car. A land yacht. So I speak of that often, so when it comes up in the story, you'll know what I'm talking about. And now let's get into the stories. Oh, shit. Okay, can you hear me when I do this? Okay, good. The first one is a farm story. I was raised on a farm. So this story is true. Only the wardrobe items have been changed to protect the closeted. I was a young, little closeted queen living in Dayton, Idaho, population 350, on a potato farm with 5,000 sheep. Does anybody see how this fits a stereotype? Consequently, I learned a little bit too much about the woolly critters. Let me preface this story by saying sheep are stupid. Stupid, stupid, evil creatures and stink to high heaven. We were the only farm that had sheep on the west side of Franklin County. All the rest had dairy cows. When most people think of sheep, they think of pleasant scenes in mind with Jesus on a green rolling hills with a few cute sheep, or those things in the Certain Perfect mattress commercials. Nothing could be further from the real truth. Sheep are definitely one of Satan's most devilish creations. As a young queen in a rural setting, before I even had my first set of high heels, I dreamed of having a Brokeback Mountain moment in a beautiful scenic mountain setting. But alas, the initiation into the love that dare not speak its name was not to be mine until many years later. And let me pause the story here for just a second. I write the stories the way I speak. When I'm telling stories to people, I use lots of air quotes and asides. So, okay. The hired farmhand looked more like the ugly stepchild of Mitch McConnell and Eleanor Roosevelt. It wasn't even possible. In my case, rather than have our sheep spread out in pastures like on postcards, they were all crowded in a and closed in a feedlot corral near our house. Therefore, not only was the idyllic pastoral vision of them greatly diminished, but the smell was concentrated and extremely foul. On the brighter side, however, it's much easier to count them while falling asleep if they're all concentrated together. So it was very easy for me to get this Queen's Beauty rest. For those of you who don't have any experience in these things, sheep do only two things. They eat and they shit. They shit a lot. The shit's mostly green. When it rains, it turns into a foul, running muck that spreads over the earth like the waters of Noah's flood. Because we lived right there by the feedlot, due to nose blindness, we couldn't smell it unless we'd been away for a while. But when we would return, we could smell the stench. The stench was so bad that no matter how hot the day was, when the school bus would get to within a half mile of our house, everyone would roll up their windows and sweat like pigs, until the bus was at least a half mile past our place to avoid smelling the stench. A delicate young queen tries to overcome such social infractions, but she can only use so much perfume to disguise that natural scent before it will cause a genetic mutation and she will become the toxic avenger, but with a better wardrobe. In the wintertime, my dad would scrape up all the sheep shit in the corral with a tractor and push it into a large pile to await a better winter in the spring so that we could load it into the manure spreader and spread it as fertilizer on the fields. This specific activity is so fun, I think it should be a theme park ride. Being wintertime in Cache Valley gets very cold. If you haven't noticed, on the weather reports, it's cold enough to freeze the Queen's mascara into razor-sharp shards that could blind an unwitting wannabe. When I was 16 years old, on one very cold wintry day, when the temperature was nearing zero, one of my chores was to feed the sheep. This entailed going out into the middle of the corral and dispensing bales of hay into the feeding troughs. Whenever I entered the corral, the hay with sheep would, when I entered the corral with hay, the sheep would mob me, all pushing in to attempt to get the hay even before I placed it into the feeder. This caused me no end of frustration. On this particular day, for practicality's sake, I forewent my 5-inch pumps, and I chose to wear a stylish pair of hip boots to keep the shit at bay. While performing my chores, I needed to get to the far side of the pile of shit. The pile was frozen, so in an effort to save some time and avoid the mob of sheep, I took off and began to climb over the top of the mountain of manure. As I reached the lofty heights of the summit and pigeons were fluttering about my head, I felt much like Sir Edmund Hillary at the top of Mount Everest, or the girls in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, as they topped Ayers Rock in Australia. I suddenly realized that I had made one horrible, terrible, no good, very bad mistake. I had forgotten that when piled up, manure ferments and creates heat. The frozen crust of shit broke, resembling a crack in the San Andreas Fault, and down I sank. Downwards I went, faster than a starving hustler goes down on the first jawn of the night. I went down over the top of my hip waders, over my belt, clear up to my armpits. Gratefully, I stopped sinking at neck level. Right here. On the bright side, the middle of the mountain of shit was all warm and gooey. And on this cold winter's day, it sort of felt good. Kind of like how you might imagine returning into the womb might feel, or at least a mud bath at the spa in Mesquite. Of course, That warm and fuzzy feeling was tempered by the stinking putrid steam that was rising up about my face. It took several minutes of yelling for help at the top of my lungs before my dad and older brother heard me and came to my rescue. After they'd finished laughing their asses off, they had to lay planks of wood on the mountain of manure to brace themselves so that they also would not sink into this quagmire while they tried to get me out. They both grabbed onto my hands and tried to lift me out, but the angle was too insufficient for them to get enough leverage to free me from the stinking goo. Dad finally had to bring the front end loader over, tie a rope under my arms, and lift me up with the tractor, much like when they airlift a moose when they're returning into the wilderness. My hip waders remained caught in the suction of shit and slipped off during the airlift. They were never seen again. After they lifted me out, I hobbled shoeless over the frozen gravel towards the house. My mother, standing guard at the door, was not going to let me anywhere near her clean kitchen floor. So even though the temperature was well below freezing, she had my father hose me up outside with icy cold water before I was allowed inside the house to take a bath. It took me 3 days to get warm again. They ended up just throwing my clothes away. This story leaves us once again with several eternal questions. Do the certa-perfect sheep also shit? If so, would they resemble marshmallows? Which perfume is best to mask the smell of sheep shit? Was it wrong to enjoy the warmth inside the manure pile? While buried in sheep shit, would anybody notice if I left a load myself? If I had drowned in the sheep shit, what could they write on my tombstone? Which shade of eyeshadow would best match with sheep shit? Was it just my imagination, or was my skin extra soft for a while after? These and other important questions to be answered in future chapters of The Perils of Virginia Pap Smear. Now, these stories are all fairly short, perfect for toilet reading, just say. Here's some vocabulary you might need for this next one. Who's familiar with the term camp drag? Camp drag is, well, look at these pictures there. Over the top, clownish, just more for fun, more for silliness, rather than trying to look actually pretty, you know. Then we already talked about queer tanning. The reason I call the car Queer Tannic is I got it the year that Titanic was the movie of the year, and the car was so big. Y'all know about Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the movie? Okay. Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. Okay, those are references. Here we go. The road to camping in luxury is fraught with danger and excitement. My dear friends, it has been minutes since something perilous has happened to me, so I thought that I would share an incident from the past with you. Ever since I was a little boy / princess, I have enjoyed camping with family and scouts. The kind of camping in the forest with trees and squirrels and moose. Not the kind of camping when people dress up in high heels, too much makeup, and a push-up bra to go see Rocky Horror Picture Show. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that kind of camping also, but that's a different story, or maybe even a book. After I grew up to a full-fledged tween, I had a rule that we could only camp where we could drive my 1975 Buick Electra right up to the campsite. I needed all the comforts of home with me, so I needed to take at least 2 carloads of stuff to the campsite. I even brought a kitchen sink, because if this queen's going to have dishpan hands, it certainly isn't going to be from an actual dishpan. I would gaze with great interest at neighboring campsites, lusting after the men in their well-packed Wranglers doing their lumberjack impersonations, chopping wood, which I don't believe is a sin. Just healthy hormones in action. More importantly, I would also lust after their motorhomes, which I do believe is a sin. Something about thou shalt not covet. My loving and long-suffering husband decided to save me from sin, and with our friend Neil's help, purchased a 25-foot 1965 GMC motorhome from the car auction in Ogden. Now, remember the very first generation of Winnebago motorhomes? That's the picture. Well, as I was as giddy as a proverbial schoolgirl at the prospect of carrying my own bathroom with me. Not to mention that every queen should have her own boudoir, complete with chintz curtains and a closet in which to carry her wardrobe. With this grand chariot, I would truly be able to make a grand entrance to any campsite more spectacular than the little wannabe tramp Elizabeth Windsor in her golden carriage. Preparing to drive it back to Logan, I climbed into the magnificent motor coach with much trepidation. I hadn't driven in anything that large since I'd left the farm, unless of course you count the porn star latex appliance that I acquired at the adult educational store. Even counting that, I'm sure that the motorhome probably had more horsepower, not to mention an automatic transmission. So I took off my heels, threw a scarf around my hair, put on my opera-length driving gloves, and prepared to impersonate Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, on the drive back to Logan. Upon entering the motorhome, I was a little bit miffed. I found it to be slightly inconvenient that there was not a door by the driver's seat. Only one door located halfway back in the center of the cabin on the opposite side. Get that picture, on the opposite side. After I got on the road, it was just like driving a 2-ton grain truck on the farm. Of course, I had to floor the gas pedal to get the thing up to freeway speed, though. I was very impressed with how well it was able to climb Sardine Canyon. I was surprised that it was able to maintain 55 miles an hour as long as I put the pedal all the way to the floor. As I was coming down the Cache Valley side of the canyon, the motorhome was picking up speed, and I was feeling very grand, waving like a queen is wont to do in a parade. When I approached the curve of death, you know that one just north of Sherwood Hills, I thought that I could smell smoke. I looked around to see if there were weenies being roasted over a campfire, but alas, there were no weenies to be seen. That's really sad. Then I looked in the rearview mirror and saw with great horror that great clouds of smoke were billowing out of the cabinets inside the motorhome. By this time I was traveling nearly 70 miles an hour. My heart was pounding hard enough to be able to reach escape velocity from my 44 Double D bra. I was quickly trying to determine whether I would be able to climb out of the driver's seat and make it to the only door to jump out to safety before the driverless motorhome crashed, or be able to stop the damn thing before it blew up, thus rendering me to become a flame broiled queen. So I faced that question that so many queens have faced before, like Miss Vita Bohem in Tu Wong Fu, who had to choose between style or substance. My choices were death by fire or death by broken bones. I chose to slam on the brakes. Sure, jumping from a moving vehicle looks easy in the movies, but I never learned to stop, drop, and roll in PE class, Boy Scouts, or Princess Finishing School. Not to mention, the thought of perhaps breaking a nail while jumping was just more than I could bear, because I was fresh out of Lee press-on nails. It took nearly 200 yards to bring the smoking, hulking mass of a thing to a stop. I promptly jumped out and ran away into the bushes and hid behind a tree as fast as my high heels would allow. Expecting an explosive mushroom cloud, I stood back and watched as the thing just quietly smoked and smoked and smoked some more. With much trepidation, I slowly reapproached to investigate further. I bent over it to look under the wheel well. In doing so, I placed my hand on the side of the motorhome, and it was so hot I burned the entire palm of my hand. Just then, Neil and my husband arrived on the scene. Upon further investigation, we discovered that the exhaust pipe of the motorhome was pointing sideways directly towards the sidewall of the cabin, instead of pointing out the rear. Neil said that the older couple who had owned this previously had never driven it faster than 40 miles an hour ever. So my romping on it had caused the hot exhaust to ignite the wood between the aluminum siding. So we took a knife, stabbed some holes into the siding, and poured water into the holes, thereby extinguishing the fire. As timidly as when a straight man realizes that he has entered a gay bar by mistake, I got back in and drove very slowly the rest of the way home to Logan. All the way I was experiencing extreme buyer's remorse. Upon arriving at home, I told Neil that I did not want to keep it. Could he possibly get rid of it and sell it to somebody else? He persuaded me to keep it for a week before I made any rash decisions. The very next day, while I was on my regular hunter-gathering expedition to DI, you all know DI? I found a small crystal chandelier, and by crystal I mean plastic, perfect for installing above the dining table, fit for a queen's carriage. It was a sign from the gods, or at least Quentin and Chris, that I was to keep the motorhome and make it fabulous. So after a gallon of Febreze to eliminate the smoke smell, installing a new tailpipe, a few throw pillows, rugs, and of course the chandelier, I decided to keep it. I added a flag holder for a rainbow flag, installed the requisite educational magazines in the bathroom, secrets, and loaded up a flock of plastic flamingos to decorate campsites with. And we christened the motorhome with the name of the Flaming Queen. Since I'm too cheap to use an expensive bottle of champagne, I used a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke to christen her. Of course, the plastic bottle wouldn't break very well over the radiator, so we resorted to dumping a pack of Mentos Mints into the soda, and the resulting eruption, worthy of a porn star, christened her. She served us very well for several camping trips. Again, we are left with many eternal questions after this story. Was it in bad taste not to use champagne to christen the Flaming Queen? If I were to have become flame broiled queen, could I marry the Burger King? Would the porn star appliance be a Whopper Jr. or a full-on Whopper? Could I have roasted weenies over the mushroom cloud? If I sang the lumberjack song, would the well-packed Wranglers help me chop some wood? Since the Flaming Queen had no airbags, could my well-stuffed 44D bra fulfill that function? These and other important questions to be answered in future chapters. How long am I supposed to go? Okay. I tried to pick, of all the stories in the book, there's 191 stories. I tried to pick ones that were Cache Valley centered, because you. Okay. This is the title, The Tale of a River Runs Through It. The road to the Bear River Rapids is fraught with danger and excitement. As I wait impatiently for summer to finally arrive, I am reminded of the annual fruit float river trips that we used to do on the Bear River in Oneida Narrows, Idaho. Fruit, meaning gay fruit float. The flow of the river rises and lowers like ocean tides due to the release of water by the hydroelectric dam. Whenever some queen in Salt Lake decides to plug in her curling iron and vibrator at the same time, the power company needs to activate the electric turbines for additional flow to the electrical grid to prevent a blackout. They take a lot of power. It was necessary to wait until the river was at full flow before we could float down it without scraping our bottoms on the rocks. We waited on the riverbank, passing the time by playing strip Monopoly, while watching for the telltale signs that the river was beginning to rise. I had just landed my little silver racing car on Park Place. The rent was going to be 5 pieces of clothing. Not counting my beehive hair and pink feather boa, which could never be removed, I was only wearing a swimsuit, t-shirt, and shoes. You do the math. Just as I was reluctantly beginning to expose my crescent moon, we were startled by an ear-splitting shriek, high-pitched enough to decalcify a spinal column. I was greatly relieved when we realized that the squeal was not from terror of impending blindness from viewing my naked immensitude, but Eric had noticed that the water level was beginning to rise. Suddenly there arose a dust cloud of frantic activity. Frenzied queens were running this way and that, squealing with excitement, bitch-slapping each other, trying to score the best inner tube. Fearing possible electrocution, I should say, the breasticles often were wired for lights. So, fearing possible electrocution, I forewent wearing the usual electric breasticles and opted for a very fashionable fluorescent orange, busty-looking Dolly Parton flotation vest. I waded into the river and screeched in distress as the icy cold water level reached my family jewels. They retreated quickly, not to be seen again for several hours. I jumped on a too small inner tube and immediately performed the Poseidon Adventure maneuver by capsizing poop side up. Dolly Parton brought me sputtering back to the surface. With my hair now in ruins and mascara running down my face like Tammy Faye Baker, I retreated to the shore and procured a larger inner tube. By this time, the rest of the queens were beginning to float away, abandoning me to solitude. I raced back into the rushing torrent and dove onto a larger tube. Not wanting to be left behind, I began paddling more ferociously than that hunky Michael Phelps in an Olympic relay in order to catch up with the rest. In my panic to try and catch up with the rest, I inadvertently paddled my tube into a clump of weeds on the riverbank. I grabbed at some weeds in order to help pull myself free, and I was pleasantly surprised when a large sunflower was left clutched in my talons. I kept hold of the sunflower thinking I could use it as a scepter. Now totally alone on the river, I thought that I would like to make a dramatic appearance a la Cleopatra on a river barge when I caught up to the others, where we disembarked from the river. So I pulled down my swimming trunks, rolled over onto my stomach, exposing my lily-white Munus Maximus to the sunlight, and clenched the sunflower between my butt cheeks, so that it functioned as a mast on a ship. I could have sworn that I felt a carp nibble my exposed Schwanzstücker. I rounded the bend in the river, and the others got a good giggle at the sight of my glorious single-masted river schooner, the HMS Patsmere. In my revelry, I failed to notice that I was too far out into the main current of the river to easily disembark. Since my swimming trunks were caught around my ankles, I couldn't maneuver as I needed. I was rapidly floating towards a small waterfall. Y'all, how many have been to the United Narrows? And, okay, there's about a 3-foot waterfall with rocks.
Yeah.
Since I was far past the point of no return, I decided my only option was to ride it out over the falls and hope for the best. I was thrilled when my tube avoided hitting the first large boulder. My joy quickly became panic as I was sucked by the raging current around a rock and caught spinning rapidly in a whirlpool vortex of the rock's downstream side. Getting dizzy, I kicked against the rock with my legs, losing my swimming trunks in the process, but thereby gaining enough momentum to send my tube further downstream. My tube then slammed against another rock and slipped out from under me, leaving me grasping for dear life onto the rock, fighting the rushing torrent as it crashed upon my naked bolus rotundus. Unexpectedly, I became the recipient of a shocking and voluminous Bear River enema. After being thoroughly cleansed, I released my hold on the rock and let Dolly Parton carry me further downstream to where I could emerge bloodied and muddied and bedraggled from the river, looking ever so much like the queen from the Black Lagoon. Fortunately, I was covered in enough seaweed that I was able to shield the family jewels from public disparagement. As always, these events leave us with several eternal questions. If I connected my battery-powered electric breasticles to the electrical grid, could the power company avoid building additional power plants? Could this be a possible solution to climate change? Does a river animal leave any special healing virtues? What did the carp think? Should I develop a line of seaweed swimwear? These and other questions to be answered in further chapters. Okay, one more. This one is called The Tale of the Full Moon Lagoon. The road to Lagoon is fraught with danger and excitement. I just love Gay Day at Lagoon. I really enjoy hearing all the queens squealing like little girls on the roller coasters. But mostly I like Gay Day because the spandex quotient in the Laguna Beach swimming area swells to inspirational proportions. I want to bear my testimony that the scene of Speedo-clad, hand-and-toed gym bunnies can be exceedingly inspirational. Lycra spandex must indeed be the celestial fabric, because there are very few other times when I come closer to God than when I encounter a buff hunk sporting a bulging Speedo. Cleanliness is next to God. Several years ago, on Gay Day, my visit to Laguna Beach was a mixed bag of pleasure and pain, and embarrassment. Out of consideration for public safety, the Speedo company does not make swimwear that will sufficiently encompass a gravity-enhanced queen such as myself. Therefore, I opted to wear some baggy bloomers and a t-shirt to cover up the royal body, lest I dazzle other swimmers with my untanned, lily-white brilliance. Actually, I truly believe that in direct sunlight, I might burst into flame, and anyone who witnessed the spectacle would turn into a pillar of salt. Imagine my mortification when I was informed by the impudent little, but still very cute, teenage lifeguard, barely older than my last perm, that I was not allowed to wear the t-shirt on the slides. Little did the lifeguard realize that it was only his beauty that spared his life. I desired to float down the rapids on one of those festive yellow floating tubes. The ever so adorable lifeguard again narrowly avoided death when he informed me that I may not lay tummy down across the tube. I must sit on top of the tube with my ass nestled firmly in the hole. Due to the fact that I have had my spine fused over the course of 3 surgeries, That's my story, I'm sticking to it. I was not able to bend my body enough to get my overly abundant butticus rotundus down in the hole. Consequently, the resulting vessel was very top-heavy, and upon launching, quickly performed the imitation of the USS Poseidon, capsizing. The subsequent tsunami swept several well-packed speedos prematurely down the slide. Doing my best Shelley Winters impersonation, I resurfaced, spitting out chlorinated water like a cobra spits venom. I firmly informed the lifeguard that since I had back fusion, I did have to show him the scars. I must mount the tube by lying across it on my stomach. To my great dismay, without a girdle to secure the goods, my substantial tummy fit perfectly, filling the hole in the middle of the tube, just like jelly in a donut. Thus, the USS Petunia was launched. This time, the ride began very pleasantly. However, on the second waterfall, the swirling action of the waves caught the waistband of my bloomers and swoosh, bang, boom, I felt the shorts begin to slide down. Before I knew it, they were down around my ankles. And since I was going commando underneath, it unveiled the Royal Butticus Maximus. Fortunately, I accessed that portion of DNA humans share with monkeys, and I was able to cling onto the shorts with my toes. Usually, I enjoy the occasional Free Willy skinny dipping experience. However, this time I panicked because I was about to pass under the pedestrian bridge loaded with dozens of other swimmers. Some of them were even muggles with children, waiting in line. Frantically, half blinded by the splashing water, I tried unsuccessfully to restore my shorts to their proper place. Stretching my lee press-on nail to the utmost limit, with all the while trying to desperately stay afloat while crashing into other riders, relentlessly, my tube kept floating closer and closer to the bridge, eventually presenting a full moon of blindingly white blubber to the horrified onlookers. Oh, the humanity. This was worse than the Hindenburg disaster. I shall always be tortured in my nightmares by the horrified screams. I heard someone cry out that the Ross ice shelf must have broken away from Antarctica. A child cried, "Look, Mommy, it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man." One of the well-packed Speedos, who I had intended to begin stalking, exclaimed that Moby Dick, the great white whale, was attacking. Several were afflicted with snow blindness. Oh, the indignity. Now, on the lookout for harpoons, I continued down the two remaining rapids to the bottom of the slide before I could regroup and cover my assets. I was hoping that Mr. Moby Dick would rescue me by planting a flag in my South Pole region and claim it for Queen and Country. After pulling my shorts back up in an effort to salvage a modicum of dignity after such an overexposure, I decided to treat this incident just like any other queen would. Pretend it never happened. Clutching the yellow tube in front of me as a shield, I emerged from the water, ignoring the wide-eyed, slack-jawed onlookers, and marched steadfastly back to the top of the slide. Thank goodness denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Like always, this leaves us with several eternal questions. Is my love of spandex the reason Spider-Man is my favorite superhero? Probably. If I dyed my girdle pink, could I wear that as swimwear? If I had caught fire in the sunlight, would I be considered a flaming queen? Would tattooing a tramp stamp pointing the way to my polar region improve my sex life? Could an erection have prevented the loss of the shorts? Do I ever stand a chance with Mr. Moby Dick Man? Should Lagoon reenact this experience for Frightmares? These and other important questions answered in future chapters of The Perils of Producing Pastor. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, that was wonderful. Lots of fun for those of you who... would like to read the other 185 such stories. And
Some of them are very dirty.
but all couched in innuendo. Courtney is happy to sign your book and sell it to you and the whole 9 yards. And again, thank you very much for coming down.
Yes, thank you.
Did everyone have a chance to sign this? Okay, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to, I'll know everyone and I'll just write it down. But go ahead. But apparently, I don't know you, so.
It's my first time.
All right, well.
Yay, look.
Should be right here, just a sign-in sheet.
For those looking to share up to 7 minutes of their own work.
Oh, to get up there. Trying to get me up there. We could do it.
Okay, anyone else? Hands. Yeah, there we go. I'll meet you halfway.
There's a lot about me that you don't know.
And then, Tim, we have to leave by about, we have to be done by about 8:30. We need to be done by about 8:30, a little bit after that.
Okay, we will
Clean up.
step on the gas just a little bit harder. All right, our first 3 readers are Naomi Tim, Asher Blakely, Edmund Porter. In that order? Here we go. Shut Naomi.
I know. It's always me holding up the Okay. Am I supposed to walk to the podium thing? Okay. All right, sorry.
We could push that podium closer. Is it okay?
Yeah. Okay. All right, I really have just one very short poem. Since I know it's probably no answer, but if you would like an audience participation moment, if you could all say hello, Isaac, to my husband who is going to watch this tomorrow on YouTube.
Hello, Isaac.
Thank you. All right. Okay, here's the poem. It is called Post-Election To-Do List. Play Animal Crossing every morning. That way you start the day feeling accomplished. Read poetry. Most poets have seen some shit. They get you. Drink a third cherry Coke today. There is a good chance a South African son of a slave-owning fuck will cut your food stamps. Drink some more joy while you have it. Keep taking your meds. You won't want to check out before you get the chance to punch a Nazi. Continue to roleplay. Let's admit it. Even if your aim is good, you don't hit that hard. So it will be more satisfying to shoot a space Nazi in a Star Wars game. Tell your friends you love them. Eat all the cheese. Bask in the adoration of your cats. Get high off that sweet, sweet new library sound. Finally finish all of Asher's books. Read The Lord of the Rings again. Don't watch the inauguration. Keep your neighbors from watching it too, by watching Rocky Horror in the communal TV room. Go to poetry group. Sing loud every fucking day. Make them silence you by force, not fear. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, it's Trans Visibility Week this week, and I happen to be transgender, so I've got one new poem at the very end that's about being transgender, and a couple of older poems, and smashed in the middle are some really short ekphrastic poems from a trans poetry workshop I went to a couple of years ago that I've never read. So, this first one is called One of the Boys. I ran with the boys in high school, biked around town like we were hot shit. Played Magic the Gathering and D&D while binging on Taco Bell and shotgunning Mountain Dew. I was jealous of thick shoulders and unshaved legs, I envied the freedom they had to change their bodies, shaggy hair in wild colors, tattoos on forearms and calves, pierced nose, tongues, nipples. Amy, my grandmother kissed. They'll never be hired looking like criminals. I wore my jeans loose and my shirts too big, afraid of my own flesh. I wanted checkered canvas Vans only available in the boy aisle, and ball caps too crass for a young lady. Stewing in my skin, unable to express how my body failed me, I had never heard the word transgender. That moment where it all coalesced, as Andrew said, "I'm gay," and Harris' casual reply, "So Amy can teach you to suck dick, and you can teach her to wear a dress like a real girl." I still carry the sound of their laughter in my ears. And then this one is a rewrite of a poem that I had written years ago, and it's one of my favorites about, I didn't know about being trans when I wrote it, and so part of the exercise was rewriting a poem. And so this is called These New Words Taste Foreign. Strip me humble, tumble out my secrets before I catch my breath. Yes, I am exposed and bleeding, but like a wound being cleaned of its pus and dead skin, this is a pain of necessity. I have sat too long in the dark, confined by my aloneness and the treacherous nature of my own asshole brain. I have ruminated long on this moment, how much it will ache, all the people I might lose, outgrowing the faith that sheltered me. I do not remember choosing to be a wound that refused to crust and scab over, hidden in the back of the closet behind the temple clothes and the extra blankets. But here I am on the operating table anyway, divorcing my mouth from the name my mother gifted me, cutting out the history of abuse tied string by string to each letter. Like old shoes, I have outgrown being the person who bites my tongue and holds silent. And then these are the ekphrastic poems, and they're just titled after the art pieces that they go with. Art of Cruising. The men are wrestling, heavy bodies pressed together, tight enough they can hear each other breathing, feel the sweat dripping down one another's backs. The boy watches, eyes wide, unsure. By the window. He sits alone in the chair staring at the empty space his partner used to occupy, broken like the chair nobody sits in, but he can't seem to throw away, like the life they built that no longer exists, the bloom of fresh color fading to blackness as it awaits new life to fill the void. He is not ready to move on. And then this last one is trans visibility in Utah following the 2024 election results. Being trans in the Mormon state feels a lot like being a spectator at a particularly chippy hockey game, whose team has just battled the puck across the ice, pulled a slick backwards pass to the center, ready and waiting, who seizes his chance with an instinct drilled into his very being, to lob said puck at a defender just as practice, to score the hardest goal, a 5-hole goal, made by forcing the puck through the tiniest gap where the goalie has the most chance to stop the play dead, but somehow couldn't. Today, as I drove down Wall Avenue between the Pepsi plant and the Walmart, I saw a trans flag staked to the end of your driveway. I saw the flag before I saw your house with the sun-bleached paint and a camper parked on the grass beside the children's toys that spill down cement steps like a buffet. I saw it and I cheered, the sound of my exultation pulling from my chest so loud I startled myself. If you could have seen me, my fist raised in the air, failing to convey my joy, so I had to slam my palm to the steering wheel, chanting, "Yes, yes, yes," until the words died in my throat, choked off by sobs, tears falling as I grieved all that I have sacrificed to find myself in this moment where I exist on the verge of seeing it all stolen away. Thank you.
I was disappointed when my wife said she needed to make a quick stop to pick up the jelly roll. It didn't mean we're going to the pastry shop. And there never has been a quick stop at the fabric store. See, my wife's a quilter. Pulling into the parking lot, I weighed my options. I could only come up with two. The first was to sit in the car and wait. The second was to go into the store with her. Neither seemed ideal. If I chose the first option, I'd have to find a parking space that provided both morning and afternoon shade. If I had planned sufficiently, I'd have an audio novel downloaded to my phone. If not, there are a lot of online videos, but only if my charger was in the car. I hadn't planned well enough. I had to take the second option. When I entered the store, the clerks looked at me like I was a bull in their china closet, and I wasn't even a big man. One clerk, whose primary task, it seemed, was hunting down men who dared step into the quilter's domain, spotted me. She thrust a brown bag into my hand. The word "man bag" were written on a gift tag, and it was tied up with a neat little bow. I didn't know what to do with the man bag. So I opened it, and I found a squatty bottle of water that held about a cup and a chocolate bar. I thought it was safe to drink the water in the store. But as I looked around at the bolts of pristine fabric, I decided it would not be wise to open the chocolate bar. The last time I ate chocolate, I ended up with more on my hands than in my mouth. I held up the candy bar. My wife glared at me. I chose to take the man bag out to the car. I could have stayed there in the first place, but I didn't pick the right parking spot. I didn't have my phone charger, and I wouldn't have gotten the chocolate bar. I imagine my wife was happier now that I was not in the store. She didn't have to listen to me sigh each time she pulled a new fold of fabric from the shelf or laid a piece of thread across a cloth sample to see if the colors exactly matched. Morning had turned to afternoon, and I was sweating profusely by the time she returned to the car. I'd already eaten the chocolate bar and found the napkins in the glove compartment. She asked me to pop the hatch so she could load her purchases. She opened her door and climbed in, informing me they didn't have the proper batting. I panicked. We were going to another quilt store. All I knew about batting was that it's the fluffy white stuff that went inside the quilt. Well, it turned out that not just any fluffy white stuff works. It depended on what the quilt was to be used for, how much quilting would be done, and how much drape the quilt needed. Stores do not display batting. So my wife told the clerk at the next store what she wanted, and the clerk disappeared into the basement. In the meantime, my wife was browsing the store. She ogled the kits and the pattern books, and then turned her attention to a table full of stacks of colorful fabric. Some were labeled as back borders, and others as charm packs. I didn't know the difference, so I asked for clarification. She told me that a back border is twice as wide and half as long as a quarter yard of fabric cut from a bolt. And a charm pack is 5-inch squares, not to be confused with the layer cake, which is 10-inch squares. I didn't see any layer cakes. I figured it was because we were still not at the bakery. 20 minutes later, the clerk returned from the basement, dragging a big box. Batting is cheaper if you buy it 30 yards at a time. I looked at the box and measured it in my head. I wasn't sure it would fit in our little SUV. My wife said it would fit. I stood by the box like the wooden carved cowboy at the feed store, except I didn't have my hat and lariat. It was a good thing I was wearing my boots. While I stood guard over the batting, my wife continued to shop. The next time I saw her, her arms were full of bolts of cloth. I abandoned the box of batting, securing the fact that no one would take a box that size out of the store, I noticed, and ran to her aid. Soon both her arms were full of fabric. I asked her what she was going to make. She said she didn't know, but it was such cute fabric that she had to buy it. We stacked the bolts on the counter, and I returned to guard the batting while she informed the clerk how much of each she wanted. 30 minutes later, she picked up her bags of folded fabric while I wrestled the batting out the door. We arranged everything in the car and folded down the seats, and the batting fit neatly, just like her quilt blocks usually do. I closed the hatch. Now it was time to find the bakery, where they sold jelly rolls and layer cakes that I could eat. My chocolate bar was only a memory.
That was Edmund's first time, everybody. So awesome.
Yeah.
Very well done. I forgot to announce that the next Helicon is going to have David Cakes. It will be on December 12th, and I look forward to seeing you all there. The next three readers are going to be J.S. Garish, Anthony Shirley, and Woody Lane. Are you 17:30, correct? Oh, we've got plenty of time. We'll do some time. Jay Garrett, Anthony Shirley, Woody Lane. Jay, Anthony Shirley.
She's not answering you because she didn't know what she signed that.
She thought it was a sign-in sheet.
See? Billy, actually, that mistake has happened. So you got as big a laugh as
But I
anybody,
still think
and
you
didn't
should
even
say
have to read.
something. No.
Okay, we're gonna go with Woody Lane.
We know Woody's here.
Woody. After which will be Star, and then Isaac.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Woody.
This is a piece I actually wrote in Jennifer's class about a year ago, and it recently got chosen to be published in an honors restricted literary magazine.
Yay! Good job.
It's called In Case of Fire. A young child runs out the front door. Action figures and monster truck cars in hand. The door slams and they throw their toys in a pile. Reaching into their pocket, they pull out a wand lighter that they stole from the kitchen drawer. A wicked smile greases their otherwise innocent features. The primary test is conducted on the monster truck. Surprisingly, the rubber tires ignite first. They morph into molten black blobs. Bright yellow light produces a scent of sulfur. Flame sputters out when they pull the lighter away, sputtering into a single line of flame. The child makes a mental note not to inhale. Next to burn is the truck's hardest chassis. A much longer exposure to flame is required before it erupts. A large amount of smoke accompanies these flames. Blue tendrils reach out the windows, grasping at the sky. Those that manage to escape will yellow before they disappear. The child feels a black joy at the sight. Their second and last experiment is conducted on the corpse of a fallen soldier. The flame catches quickly. His helmet melts as the child holds it. This flame is yellow aside from the tip, which is blue. A molten plastic crown boasting of a blue sapphire. The drip falls from its head to the child's hand, scarring their flesh instantly. The ranger falls to the concrete where it leaves burn marks that never wash off. It's a triptych, so it's three separate things that, when read together, have a separate meaning. So this is the second part. The perfect steak comes from a fastidious process. Each step must be adhered to lest the slaughter be in vain. Clean the butchered meat of excess blood and bring it to room temperature. To ensure even cooking throughout, the center must be the same as the exterior. Once the flesh is acclimated to seasoning, the more aggressive the better, but at least ground salt and black pepper are required. Be sure to scrape the meat into the residuals. Cause the salt to enter the flesh, mop it up. Preheat the metal to between 450 and 500 degrees. Cast iron creates a cruelest sear. Add oil to the pan. This prevents the exterior from sticking when you flip the flesh. Press the to meet with a thermometer only once you believe it has reached the desired heat. Each piercing of the flesh releases more of the precious juices. Be sure to sear close any holes you make. Now remove the result from the pan. It needs to rest before we devour it piece by piece. This is the third section. Once the autopsy is over and cause of death determined, prosthetic parts and or implants are to be removed. The body is kept in a temperature-controlled room and placed into a combustible vessel. This is the last time the body is ever seen. The vessel is placed into the furnace. The chamber into which the vessel is placed is called a retort. The heat of the furnace is raised up to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. The only place where these temperatures occur in nature is deep within the pyroclastic enzymes of our Earth. Flames envelop and consume the vessel and the form that lay within. These flames are maintained for up to 3 hours. The muscles and skin melt away, the liquids evaporate until only bones remain. Then they become brittle. They break under their own weight. All that's left are small fragments and ash. A magnet is passed over the top of this pile to remove any metal. Then the particles are collected and placed into a cremulator. This device grinds and crushes the remaining pieces into a fine powder. This treasure is brought home. It is placed on the mantle where it can be seen. It is put in the closet where it never will be seen again. It is brought to a forest where its contents can return to the earth. We are transformed.
Okay, Lucy. What's your name? Isaac.
Go ahead.
Isaac, you are after Star.
You can go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I should preface this by, I used to work in a thrift bookshop.
All right.
Welcome to Biblical Bible Paradise, the land of regretted publications, a place of forgotten pages, a hot spot of misinformation, a kingdom of worn-out paper, a second-rate bookstore at best, an orphanage of papery children that no one will adopt. Who am I in this often somber kingdom? I'm the headmaster, caretaker, regulator, quality control, guide, wanderer. But more simply put, and for the most part, I'm the librarian. I'm a dragon, dwelling with its forward. Only I give freely any treasures anyone wishes. They're not mine to keep, and I don't want them. This dragon only maintains order with a certain ferocity. No, I shan't attack any that disrupt it. I am a gentle giant. I do leave from time to time, and while I'm away, disorderly chaos breaks loose. Though when I get back, I will, grumbling all the while, make things as they were, or at least as close as I can get. This forest of what was once trees has become a home to me, and often visited, profit-churning, disaster-prone, the collection filled, stress-inducing, overly noisy, industry-bound, greed-attracting, monotonous home. Why do I stay? No one is able or willing to maintain it as well as I do, and I've grown fond of the residents, seeing myself in them. I will admit that residing there makes your grasp of time loosen. If you are often there alone, it may decrease your inclination to interact with others. I've started to envision the books as needy toddlers that need my assistance, and many times I wonder just how many lead due to my efforts. I may not look it, but I will gladly guide you to anything you are looking for. What few courageous people that ask the director are like breaths of fresh air for this cavern-bound dragon. Unlike the legendary beast, I wish companionship and equal. I often feel that what I do at the appointed time is not enough. If I had the energy, perhaps I could stay longer, but cleaning up after others is a tiring task.
Thank you for coming. I'm Star. I've been writing some short memoirs, and this one is revised. So it's even shorter. White. She wears a starched and pressed white uniform. Short capped sleeves, vertical piping at the bodice, 4 white buttons sewn tight into quadrangles of white thread. You can be sure the backs of the buttons are stitched to the fabric where they touch her breasts, which are lifted and separated in a crisp, bleached bra, straps adjusted to keep her ample flesh contained. Ample, yet she is petite, only 4 feet 11 inches tall with a short waistline and sturdy legs, her calves defined, muscles pronounced in the way high heel wearing women acquire that style. Her skirt skims her legs mid-knee, a satin slip underneath, which makes her skirt swish as she bustles back and forth from coffee counter and glass washing sink to kitchen where orders wait under a stainless steel carousel of clicked-on order tickets, to tables where local merchants, farmers, construction workers laugh and guffaw and lift their coffee cups to their lips, refill after refill. Her spotless crepe-soled shoes laced up with pristine white laces mince across the linoleum floors, stuck-up ghosts with a hitch in their get-along. It's her classic walk, quick, short steps, a little halting flounce, showing off her size 4s, always in heels when she's not waitressing. One whole room in her tiny brick house on 4th North and 5th West in Logan is stacked floor to ceiling with new-looking shoes in their original boxes, most of them bargain-priced, for no one else in town has feet that small. She gets the displays, never been tried on, the fanciest, the most coveted. Her hair is champagne blonde, a beehive with waves combed to glossy sheen and sprayed 1970s chic. Just before the lunch rush, all that white perfection drives up to the cafe she and her husband own. He's the cook. She takes money at the cash register, thanks the customers with her gracious banter. How are you? Is everything all right? Would you like to pay with cash or check? She counts change, holding coins and bills in her manicured hand, nails shaped and polished. That will be $4.98. Here's $4.99. $5, 10 and 20. Thank you and see you tomorrow. After the lunch rush, cleaning tables with the bleach-saturated terry cloth rag, pure white, with 2 green stripes down the middle, standard issue from the linen company, I keep my head down so she doesn't flounce over to me in her starched, immaculate uniform. I'm wearing my light green polyester pantsuit. I've asked her if I can stay on part-time, not work all 5 weekdays and Saturdays too. Kids, you know. She's my boss and my mother-in-law. Her son, my husband, cooks Friday and Saturday on the night shift. I work days, but we still have to pay a babysitter because my husband works at the meat plant Monday through Friday, cutting steaks on the line. He has a knife that gets smaller and smaller as he works, sharpening it every time the line slows. His uniform is blood-stained, not like his mother's. His uniform is cotton denim with a short apron to deflect the knife in case it grazes his front. The line moves lightning fast, beef carcass parts streaming down the conveyor. He lifts and slices all day, then comes home to sleep in the lazy boy with a scotch and water, except on weekends when he drives to the family cafe and drinks his dad's scotch as he cooks for the dinner crowd. Sometimes I work the night shift with him. After we close, I clean up the cafe, mop the floors, and sweep the parking lot while he preps for the next day. He bullshits with the dishwasher, a middle-aged gay man who meets young guys in public restrooms on Canyon Road. He tells them, I'm going to take my false teeth out and take you all the way down. He drives a little Ford Pinto he painted with flat latex green. You can see the brushstrokes. My crisp white uniformed mother-in-law, Sarah Bell, is suddenly at my elbow as I'm polishing the last table. She has a way of pursing her lips to make a sucking sound when she's got something on her mind. She's saying, come in the bathroom with me. I want to show you something. She looks as prim and crisp as she did when she walked in the door, fresh ironed, sprayed, not a hair out of place, her mouth painted red, her teeth small and white, her shoes leading the way down the hall to that dark, dank restroom with its white hand-crank towel holder, white powder hand soap, rust-stained sink, full-length mirror, and sanitized toilet bowl. I have no choice but to follow her.
All right, stars, thank you. That's fabulous. Emily Wheeler, Bill, and Scott.
They say that God watches over children and fools. They also say that man plans and God laughs. On my first vacation as an official adult, I learned that both of these things are true. My best friend Jenny and I had been separated by her parents' decision to move across the country her senior year. So all through our last year of high school, we worked and saved to have a grand post-high school adventure backpacking through England. Somehow, I became our travel planner. I was surprised to find that it was fun, discovering all the possibilities, imagining the ideal trip, and trying to make it all fit into our budget and time frame like a puzzle. In the teenage haze of invulnerability, I mapped out our 2-week trip, finding bus and train routes, campgrounds, and interesting sites. I budgeted everything down to the dollar, or rather the pound, and did such a thorough job planning that my parents stopped questioning whether it was a good idea for me to go. I got my first inkling that this was not the ideal world of the travel guide perfect vacation when we lined up at the Heathrow bus, no coach station, to buy tickets to our first destination exactly as planned. I'd like a ticket to Bath, I said. The woman behind the counter just stared at me. I shifted my heavy backpack and shared a confused look with Jenny. They do speak English in England, right? Finally, the woman said, you must mean Bath. Yes, Bath, I said, still like an American. She knew what I meant, but didn't know how I pronounced it. She narrowed her eyes, not taking my money. Bath. And we engaged in a stare-down that might have made old King George and George Washington proud, except that I surrendered. Okay, I said, Bath. She sold us some tickets, and she gave me a look that made it clear that I was on notice. We boarded the bus, and Jenny immediately dozed off. I stared out the window at all that green open space, unlike anything I'd seen in the U.S., and it suddenly hit home that we were not in Kansas anymore. Kansas, maybe, but not Kansas. As the bus rolled on through the virgin English countryside, I called myself in reviewing the plan. I took out my little journal and noted how much we'd spent on the bus tickets, the exact amount we budgeted. We just had to stick to the plan and everything would be fine. As we explored the countryside of southwest England over the next week and a half, we saw Roman ruins, medieval castles, Gothic cathedrals, and Stonehenge. I felt good about how the plan was unfolding. We were spending our last days in London before flying out. Here's where the plan got a little shaky. There aren't any campgrounds in London, and in the pre-Google days, we couldn't just book a reservation online. But the guidebook assured us that we could find a decently priced hotel in the city. As soon as we got off the bus, a guy handed us a flyer for a youth hostel on Kensington High Street that was actually cheaper than what we had budgeted. And Kensington High Street sounded posh. We took it as a sign and decided to go. Well, if you've seen The Great Muppet Caper, you might remember the questionable Happiness Hotel where the Muppets stayed in London. I'm pretty sure the inspiration for that movie came from this youth hostel. The outside looked identical to all the other light gray townhouses lining the street, but inside, yikes. weird smells, shabby carpets, disgusting showers, and probably even the singing rats. But we met interesting people from all over Europe, and mostly our age, and likewise having their adventure before settling into whatever adult things came next. Our most interesting housemate was a fellow American, a guy named Brian about our age who was paying his way through Europe as a street performer, all the way down to torch juggling. And I mean the American definition of torch, not British flashlights. I think he was the one who first told us about the concert. We had saved money by staying in Kensington's answer to the Happiness Hotel, and we had already budgeted for the major tourist sites like the Tower of London. So even with eating a little better than we had for most of the trip, we had some extra cash. And one of the people in our youth hostel had some scalp tickets for a concert in Hyde Park Saturday night. Only 10 quid. We, especially I, hesitated over this not in the planned activity. We don't have anything else to do Saturday night, Jenny said, and we can afford it. She was right, but I was wary of scalp tickets and anything that wasn't part of the plan. Alanis Morissette is before me, Jenny pushed. We've got to do this. Jenny and I were both pretty big fans of alternative rock, and especially angry female alternative rock, so that did. We bought the highly suspicious tickets and joined the crowds heading to Hyde Park that Saturday evening. Now they were big crowds, like all of London was going to this concert. I suspected that we'd gotten ripped off and our tickets would be no good, but they let us in without batting an eye, and it was clear that this was an event. It wasn't just Alanis Morissette performing, although she was amazing. It was also Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, and The Who. The music was great, the energy was electrifying. Then the concert was over, and it was late, almost midnight. Good thing the tube runs at all hours. We knew which line to take back to our hostel, but that was about it. So we made it to our tube and settled in for the ride home. At a stop far short of ours, the tube train gets to a halt. A voice came over the loudspeakers. It is now midnight. The transportation workers are on strike. Please exit the train. For all my research, I had spent our trip in oblivious tourist mode, not really paying attention to what was going on in the country I was visiting. I'm sure the pending transportation strike was in the news, but we were more interested in the events 1,000 years ago than what was happening at the moment. So we shambled off the train in something of a daze. I mean, when they said that the transportation is on strike, they didn't mean all the transportation, did they? Yes, they did. But wouldn't someone still take tourists home after midnight so they didn't have to wander the streets of London? Nope. Turns out that's not how the world works. A bit of an abrupt lesson for us. We were dumped in some unknown part of London with no one to even provide directions. We had no map. Having left anything of that sort in Happiness Hotel 2.0. We had no cell phone. Those were more common in movies than in the hands of teenagers back then. We were on our own. So what can we do, I asked Jenny. She shrugged. After all, I was the planner. But I had not planned on this, and I could not see a way to plan my way around it or out of it. We were in trouble. I felt for the first time since that moment on the bus how very, very alone we were. I reached out to the only lifeline I could think of. I picked a direction that seemed sort of rightish and started walking, and as we walked, I prayed like a priest in a tank of piranhas. Footsteps sounded behind us. It was remarkably unfoggy for London, but we couldn't see whoever it was. We walked faster, staying close to each other, ready to scream or run if we had to. Not that anyone was around to hear us. We found a street that, while empty, had a few lights on closed shop windows. At least there we'd be able to see who was following us. The sound of footsteps stayed right behind us. My mouth was dry, my heart pounding. I doubled down on the prayers. "Hey, guys," called a voice from behind us, an American voice. We whirled around. In the light from the shops, we saw our torch-juggling housemate waving at us. We stared at each other, then at him. "Brian?" I asked. "Yeah, wow, what are you guys doing here?" He sounded drunk, very drunk. But there were probably a few times I'd been as happy to see someone. The tube shut down, and I said, "We don't know how to get back to the hostel." He looked confused by that. "Oh, I was just craving something really bad, craving Doritos. Man, everything's shut down, and I just want some Doritos." "Yeah, I think everything's closed," I said. He looked deflated. "I really wanted Doritos. Can you tell us where the hostel is from here?" I asked. "Oh, sure. You guys are going the wrong way, though. Did you see any Doritos anywhere?" "No, man, sorry." "Oh, well, I'll walk back with you." I thought there was no way this incredibly sozzled torch juggler would be able to find his way back. But he did. He brought us right back to the hostel like an inebriated guardian angel. I won't belabor the religious aspect of a miraculous rescue. I'll leave that to your individual belief systems to decide. But I will say I learned that while making plans is good, it's not a cure-all. And when we have to wing it, sometimes things work out in unexpected ways, such as in the form of drunk guardian angels.
Yeah.
Any military brats in here, don't raise your hand. Place. It's important. Military kids, it's really important. They don't have a place. They move every 18 months, every 4 years, 3 years. But they often have, like their grandparents, place is where they call home, a favorite base where they call home. I have 2 places I call home. This place and Long Island, New York, where my father's parents lived and where he was raised. But even though you're on a base, you got a place. Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska, kindergarten. I walk into the room. There's this on a desk. I pick it up. I look around. I go to another desk, and I take that placard, move it, and put this placard. The teacher is, "What are you doing, Billy?" That's not my name. What do your parents call you? Bill. They don't call you Billy? No. Do you have a marker? A marker? Yes, a marker. Have crayons? Do you have a marker in your desk? Sorry about the jitters, guys. I'm going to get a shot in my neck, but that's what I wrote. That's where I sat. And the teacher left. She comes back with the principal. She goes, "Bill, is something wrong?" "No." "Mm-hmm. Sit here. I like this place." She goes, "Bill, you know this table is for 2. Stuff like that. I said, "Yes, I know. My dad told me I would have to share. It was probably going to be a girl, and I have to be
Just go splat.
Hello, I'm from Salt Lake. This is my first time here.
Welcome.
Thank you. One little clap. See where we stand. If you haven't had a chance to buy the book, buy the book. And if you don't get a chance to buy it on Amazon. And if you like me and all my little baby letters, you can download it onto your Kindle. Of course, the Kindle isn't as much fun for him to sign. We took off a little while ago and we hung out on the good ship Miracle, where I found myself in the back on the Lido deck, soaking in a hot tub with a bunch of other large people. And it was later that I wrote this. Our boat flags over ocean waves, which tip in white on windy days. The puffy clouds in tropic skies pass overhead where seagulls fly, while we sit in sun with drinks nearby. We sit in tubs and percolate. With friends, we laugh, we speculate. How many more can we fit in? 2 or 3 if they are thin. I really hate the free buffet. It's all its fault I'm fat this way. The evening comes, I go to bed beneath the starry sky. The rocking ship lulls me to sleep, soft as a lullaby. I drift in dreams all through the night, till night fades into day, where we will baste in heated tubs and eat from the buffet. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, Emily, that was awesome. I deeply apologize to our remaining readers. We are officially out of time. Please come back on the 12th and read what you were going to read tonight. That would be Matt, Saoirse, Sydney. I'm sorry. There we go. Helicon West is over. Meeting adjourned. No benediction required. Please help put your chairs away. And come again on the 12th.
Thank you, Tim.